The National Investor's motto is, you can get information anywhere, but here you get knowledge. And for well over 40 years now, Chris Temple has imparted that knowledge, an unparalleled, understandable, and useful take on the big picture of the markets and of our world. He has been out in front of what you see on the news every day on many themes. More, Chris has taken this macro knowledge and his unique analytical abilities to uncover unique investment opportunities. Often, he has guided his members to big winners in resources, biotech stocks, and more. His talents and connections often getting him into ground floor opportunities before they are discovered. Without further ado, here is Chris with today's topic.
Welcome back, folks. I'll be joined momentarily by my friend Terry Lynch. He is the CEO of Polymetallic Mines, formerly a little while back of Power Nickel, before they changed the name. You're going to hear the reasons why, exciting ones, if that, once I bring Terry on. Now, as you see here on the screen, the company can be found on a Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol PNPN, and you add an F to that to get their listing here in the U.S. on the OTCQB market. Terry has already had a lot of success in shepherding Polymetallic to the place where, as you saw on the label of this video, they are sitting on the possible discovery of a major, like a super giant polymetallic property, rivaling the big ones of the world over the years, whether it's Voisey's Bay for nickel, whether it's Norilsk, however many you want to look at, they could get up there. They've already got extraordinarily high grades, and now going beyond nickel into copper and other metals as well. Now, before I get too deep into this, the usual preliminaries, of course, either Terry and or myself might be making what can be construed as forward-looking statements, so be aware of that. And secondly, as you see here, though Polymetallic was recommended a while back to my audience at the National Investor, our paid membership, based on its story and its merits, from time to time, they, as other companies do, will hire National Investor Publishing to do some follow-on media work, copywriting, and stuff like that, of which this video is a part. Now, among other things, and besides his being CEO of Polymetallic, Terry has become more widely known to the audience of resource-oriented investors over the last year or two, chiefly from his advocacy for the industry and for better practices and more honest practices, you might say, when it comes to the brokerage industry and Bay Street, and for that matter, maybe Wall Street, via the organization called Save Canadian Mining. Some of you, as I, may have been on webinars that he has done in the past with people like Eric Sprott, where they have discussed how a lot of the share prices for junior resource companies have not only been artificially low due to what for a while, actually for a long time, was a lack of broader investor interest. That, of course, has started to change in the recent past, but through means like naked short selling, through other means where the brokerage industry and some banks and other connected people were really keeping, they were making money by keeping the share prices depressed of a lot of good companies. And that, of course, has been very harmful to the industry generally because it makes even less the inclination on the part of investment banks and other investors to want to put money to work and things like that. So, he's done a lot of great work on that. In a subsequent conversation, we're going to stick chiefly with Polymetallic Mines today, but in a subsequent conversation, in a not too distant future, I'm going to have Terry back to give us an update on what's going on with Save Canadian Mining, as well to talk about permitting reforms, the potential of that under Prime Minister Carney, how the overall environment is as he sees it in Canada with the mining industry, given now that Canada, as well as mining as well as energy, is starting to look a lot more seriously at other potential customers apart from the U.S., thanks in no small part to the attitude toward Canada of the last several months of President Donald Trump. One other thing upcoming before too much longer, you're going to see some more commodity sector specific content from yours truly, both video and audio form. Power Metallic will be featured in that. If you are not already on my mailing list, make sure that you get on it so that you'll be receiving that information as it comes out over the balance of the summer. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts. You know from following me in the recent past about how important the MP materials news has been here in the U.S. to show how the U.S. government is taking things seriously. Canada, in some ways, both federally and provincially, some areas better than others, is also starting to take the bull by the horns as everybody comes to the realization that whether you're a Canadian or an American, whether you're looking down the road at once again better relations between our two countries, where we've got our shoulder to the wheel together as better allies again, we're in a place where we really need to have a crash course in figuring out once more how to build all of these supply chains upstream to downstream, all along the way for all kinds of mining, all kinds of critical materials, and so forth. So this is an ever more timely story, and especially given Power Metallic, its great performance in the market. Going back over the last year and a half, give or take, the company has been cited by the exchange and by others as being one of the lead performers, being one of the top explorers, and so forth. And as I alluded to a few minutes ago, what started out as a chiefly nickel story has spectacularly come out over the last 13, 14 months as a polymetallic story. The company, through its Lion discovery, especially at its Nisk project in Quebec, has had some downright bawdy assay results. Copper equivalent grades 3, 5, 8, 10% and higher over some pretty decent intervals. This adds to the whole notion that we've got a great district play in the works here potentially as exploration continues. And among other things, last but not least, just before I bring Terry on, the company just in recent days was one of only a few outside companies to be granted some key concessions in Saudi Arabia. That's an interesting part of the story now, and this is going to be a greenfield exploration project, so no great earth-shaking discoveries are going to come right away there. But that said, a lot of you who follow geopolitics know that Saudi Arabia is very hungry to diversify its own domestic resources beyond just oil and gas. They are an incubator for biotech now and looking at a whole lot of other things. And there are already one or two very high profile working mines in the country. I know Barrick has one of them, but now they're looking around for other seasoned and proven exploration teams to come into the country and prove up other projects that will add to the mix of eventually greater Saudi domestic production of base metals, critical materials, things like that. And Power Metallic, to its credit and to Terry's credit, again, just recently was awarded one of these concessions, and I'll let him tell you that story in just a little while. And here is my friend Terry Lynch, the CEO of Power Metallic Mines. Terry, glad you could join me today.
Chris, thanks for having us on.
Oh, for sure. You've got quite an interesting background. You know, it's not all about mining. You've been more of a company builder, company rebuilder. You've been in business and finance. I found it interesting when you and I first met that you were also a co-founder of a really cool biotech company, Cardiol Therapeutics, which is a story we'll save for another day. But tell us about how you got interested chiefly in the Nisk project. I know that this is one that's changed hands a few times over the years. Inco first discovered nickel there 60 or so years ago, but you guys saw something in it that really wasn't being realized by others.
Yeah, I Jean-Sébastien Lavallee is a friend of mine. He runs Critical Elements, and it's got a nice lithium play in Quebec, just about maybe 100 clicks north of us or so. And in helping JS sort of refinance, his deal. In one of the many lithium cycles, we're in another lithium low now. It's gone from lithium low to lithium high to lithium low to lithium high, back at lithium low. the question is, will there be another lithium high? I think there will be another run of it. But in any event, in one of the lithium lows, I guess the middle one, I helped him refinance critical. And on the way through, I noticed that he had a nickel asset on his balance sheet that he never really talked about. And then one of his other former partners said, Terry, you should look at that because he can't be both a nickel guy and a lithium guy. He's got to pick a path. And he said, you're probably the only guy in the world that could get that asset from him because he trusts you. So I talked to JS about it, and we agreed that probably made sense for the company to monetize it in some way. And so at the time we were running what was it, Chile Metals, focusing on Chile, but we were worried because of Chile's new government and their policies that might be discouraging to investment down there. So we were actively pursuing North American, investment opportunities. We had acquired a great project in the Golden Triangle, which we still have, where it's part of our spin-out package. And then we ended up making a deal with JS to buy what is known as the Nisk Project. We basically bought 80% of it for cash and shares and earn in, and which obviously we've done by now, and started out on what we thought was a really good nickel project, and that was the initial step. That's how we got into Nisk.
Yeah, and then you came out with a mineral resource estimate a couple of years ago that
Yep.
it's not a huge project yet, at least, though there's certainly a potential for that. But yeah, it's really extraordinary nickel grades and not really nice, solid economics.
Yeah, solid economics. It was, we thought, initially when I thought to myself, it's going to be a nice, solid nickel project. I think the resource is 7.1. We're probably at 8.5 right now because we've done additional drilling. That's not part of the MRE. And we felt there's easily 30 million tons of nickel at this grade or better. It's getting better at depth. So we think that would be commercial. So we basically we're advancing that forward. And the funny thing happened on the way to the ranch. So our average hole at the time at Nisk, Maine, was about 400 meters. And as all junior companies, you're always struggling for exploration capital. So,
Sure.
we were basically doing $2 million rounds. I put up a 500,000. I would, get my friends and network to put up a 500,000, and we get 1 million from the government. In the 2-for-1 exploration deals,
Yep.
we get 2 million and advance it forward. That's how we did it. So we were in the midst of one of those, and we had the drill budget, and the guys came to me and said, "Hey, Terry, a couple of the holes went long because we're in mineralization. So now we only have 200 meters of the budget left. The holes are 400 meters. What do you want to do? Do you want to throw some more money in?" And I said, "Look, I'll put more money in, but I don't want to put money in directly because I only get a dollar for dollar. I want to always turn my dollars into $4 just
Sure.
because that's better math. So I said, what do we have for 200 meters that would be productive that we could do? And they said, well, we've got this target up in the northeast that we think is going to be another nickel project like Nisk, Maine. It's got a nice anomaly, airborne anomaly at the surface. It has ultramafic oak crop at the surface, so it's got all the bells and whistles. It looks like another Nisk. So they're saying 200-meter test there would be great. It's in a bit of a swampy area, so best to do it now while it's winter. We can test it out and see what we got. So they go up there and throw a hole in, and at 60 meters, we hit the discovery hole, which became line zone, and we hit over ounce PGEs and 1.5% copper on that one, I think. And it was like, holy cow, that's not Nisk.
Not hardly,
so
no.
so that piece of luck became, really, we did it for the right reasons, but we got extraordinarily lucky. We had no idea that was there. The God blessed us. Thank you, big guy. We really appreciate it. Better to be lucky than anything else in this business, Chris, and we got lucky. So what happened after that, of course, is because it was the lithium rush was on full bore that summer. We couldn't get any helicopter rigs; they were all booked out. So we had to wait until January to drill it up, and then, of course, January we started drilling. We drilled 16 holes, 15 of the 16 hit, and it became a huge home run. So
Yeah.
that was sort of the origin story of things.
Yeah, and I know along the way, one of the webinars that you guys did is you were logging some of these exploration successes, which, as I showed on the screen before you came on, you've been featured as a top performer on the venture exchange, one of the best exploration stories, etc. But your characterization was that this was a gift from God. You had this 200 meters left over. You do a step out hole in a juicy area, and holy cow, look at what we just found.
That's why you got to love junior mining, right?
Yeah,
You're always at that one drill bit away from history. So
yeah,
yeah, it just extraordinarily lucky and I think we did the right thing scientifically,
sure.
but you do that all the time as much as you can, and most times you fail because we're in a failure business. This is this is the drill bit is, oh, that theory is, I have to check that theory off onto the new theory, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tough business that way. But yeah, we got lucky. And when you find one of these things, it's sort of it changes the game. And so what we realized is that we didn't have a nickel sulfide or a traditional nickel sulfide. We had a polymetallic nickel sulfide,
Right.
and we thought, wow, we don't really know that type of structure or that type of ore body. And then we started to say, well, who does? And we started to reach out. I think one of our biggest turning points as a company was identifying Steve Beresford, who is now a director, who's probably, if he's not the top polymetallic mine in the world, he's certainly in that
Yeah.
conversation. He was formerly chief geologist at First Quantum, and then at MMG, and then IGO, three successive multi-billion-dollar companies on polymetallics. And his whole mission in life is to find what this is, which is an orthomagmatic nickel copper PGE discovery. And they're super rare. Like there's only 20 in the history of the world, and
Wow.
all previous 20 are major mines or super major mines. So major mines means they have 1 million tons of contained metal. Super majors are more than 10 million tons. So right now, I guess analysts would say we're somewhere between 350 and 500,000 tons of contained metal in the ground and growing. And unless it's the first time in 20, we'll get to more than 1 million. And this thing's got an amazing upside. I mean, it could get to be a super major status. I mean, obviously the gods will decide, and well, the drill bit will decide, and but the asymmetry upside is there. And
Sure.
our whole belief is that value proposition wise, we feel we're trading at like 20, 30 cents on the dollar. What we've already discovered, forget what we may find, that we're fully funded to find with the best guys in the world looking for it, with tools that are working. But that's where it's at right now. So it's a pretty exciting time for us for sure.
Well, it definitely is. And that line discovery really changed, as you alluded to a minute ago, Terry, the whole tenor of this perhaps emerging district or
Yep.
supergiant as you've characterized it, because you started out with the garden variety, correct me if I'm wrong, nickel
Yep.
sulfide type material.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, and I know you guys, and I've listened to Steve on this as well, the geology is very different on the same property. When you hit the lion zone, what contains the PGMs, the copper, etc., and still some nickel there and cobalt and everything
Yep.
else. But it's different geology, and we're going to get in a minute to how you're going to flesh out how easy it's going to be to recover the material from this. But what did that do to the whole exploration game plan? I know it
Yeah.
excited a lot of people because you've raised a big whack of money a couple of times since then with some really well-heeled people.
Yeah, so I think what it did is that transform the economics, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're in a business where you really have to demonstrate to the investors that you made an economic discovery, and it's going to be very economic to bring this to a mine status, and it's going to be a profitable mine. So the more that you can sort of provide overwhelming evidence and proof that that's going to be the case, that creates value for you in the ground and why your stock moves. So I think what happened once we showed people that, we had, call it, I mean, our top five holes, at 950 PGMs, which we know is no longer the price, uh, is 8% copper equivalent. So you think about that, that's, north of $500 rock for sure, more like $800 rock, but whatever. I mean, that's crazy numbers in terms of, $100 rock is fantastic rock. So, $800 rock is beyond belief. So what that means is that these types of project discoveries get put in production very quickly, typically within 5 years, because you're probably going to pay out in year one, and I mean, that's just unbelievable. And it'll run for, 10, 20, 50 years. Who knows?
Right.
Norilsk was discovered in the 50s. It's 2025 right now, and it's still going strong, and it's probably got another 75 years in it. So who knows how big this will be and what it can do. So for us, understanding the nature of the discovery was important for our planning of how do we go at it in terms of exploration, and then also how do we knowing these things generally don't come as onesies. We started to think of how do we get as much land as we can. Let's review the region and see if we see other lion type signatures in the region, and see if we can't acquire those for ourselves or our shareholders. And so that's why we made, just recently we almost quadrupled our land package
Right.
with the acquisition of what we call the lift package. And the lift guys are not dumb guys. They're very smart guys. If you actually look at those guys, they're top tier geologists. So they did a lot of great work there. But they realized, the search for this is very nuanced. And it was like their core business is in uranium, or not uranium, but in lithium, and they've got a really great project in the Northwest Territories, and they've got some thoughts on on some gold possibilities in some of the other land that we didn't acquire that's sort of in the proximity to us. So they felt capable of executing on those, but they just felt they believe in us, and they sort of said, hey, look, we tried to buy them for cash, of course, and they didn't want to sell because they're not stupid, and they ended up taking stock, right? So that was the way the deal worked. But we were able to, for us, we identified 8 targets that we felt were lion-like, and now we control 7 of them. So we think, I mean, if you look at Sudbury, different obviously origination of the ore and stuff, but there's a place 33 mines. Okay, so we would expect, not only will Lion Zone become a mine, but Nisk will become a mine. Nisk Main, and there'll be other mines up there. We think there'll be a multi-mine here, and so this is the start of it. And I know, I've always been, obviously, I'm the biggest shareholder in my family, and so we're the biggest evangelists and the biggest believers, so we're always upfront about that. We're seeing the glass half full, never half empty. And so there is that to take into account, but I really believe this will be a district, and it'll change that area, and it'll possibly impact Quebec, possibly impact Canada. It'll be a great move forward for us, and we could use a few wins up here.
Oh, for sure. You mentioned the guys realizing that this lift package that you got is much better in your hands than it was in theirs. They're playing into your skill set. Now they've got some skin in the game, and it was
Yep.
important for you to get that ground because the potential size of a district is going to attract a lot of money and a lot of attentions from majors and others down the road, just as much as the grade. But I want to get back to the grade because you don't see these numbers very often anymore in North America. I've been in South America as you have been. I remember one time, and this project is in development now, the El Domo project in Ecuador. I mean, I held core in my hand that was 25% copper equivalent. Their reserve grade,
Isn't that crazy?
it's nuts.
Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
reserve
Yeah.
grade now that they're going into construction is almost 7% copper equivalent. If that's the reserve grade, they're going to be mining based on that number. So
Yeah.
when you come up with
Isn't
8%
isn't isn't
copper equivalent, 10%, things like that, I mean, profitable open pit mines in the world, not that this would be an open pit, so I don't want to, we're
it?
sort of comparing
Yeah.
apples and oranges. People did
Yeah.
it a fraction of that number, point 0.2, 0.22, 0.25, whatever, can
Yeah.
make money, let alone 8%. That's just
Oh,
crazy.
sometimes when we were announcing results, and it was funny, like we announced 32 meters of 7%, and it was at like sort of 100 meters, so it was very shallow.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh, this will be the day the stock is really going to move. The stock actually went down that day, and I thought to myself, now who in their right mind is selling the
No
stock on
kidding.
a day like today? And I thought to myself, you know what? It probably would have been better because we probably could have announced like from surface, because there was other grade that we just didn't disclose. Probably could have announced like 120 meters of over 2%. I said maybe that would have drove, because people like these big intersections. Of course, to me, it's like it's a lot more expensive to mine that.
Yeah.
You'd rather have 30 meters of 7%. It's way more profitable. I think people have, as you say, the grade story has long been absent because
Yeah,
it's just super rare. So people forget that grade really drives profitability.
sure.
And if you had your drivers, you'd a lot rather have 30 meters of 7% than 200 meters of 1%. You
Oh,
know what I
heck
mean?
yeah.
It's the same metal in the ground, but it's like just a lot less earth to move, a lot of dynamics
Yep.
there. So in the fullness of time, people will get the story out, and I think it's I always said, because obviously we did raise that money at um, basically $1.45 a share. The company got on average at 250 through the flow through programs, so that our investors only ultimately ended up putting up $1.45, and then after the Trump shenanigans with the tariffs and terrifying the markets and everything sort of corrected, we went back to like close to $1, I think. But now we bounced back. We're pretty much back to trading price, and
Yeah,
I think
you've
a
bounced back
re-rating.
nice. Yeah, just this month you've had a nice rebound.
Yeah, yeah. I've always felt that that a re-rate was coming. That I said to my shareholders, look, it's never been better for us. We've got tons of capital. We got a exploration strategy that's working. We're using this what we call borehole EM, which we may want to talk about in a bit. But it's been really effective. We're hitting on like almost 50% of our drill holes. We're finding sulfides, and so we're building the resource, and our commodities are going up in price. And we're in like the
Yeah,
best jurisdiction on the planet to be discovered, so that we got the 2-for-1 exploration. We'll also have 2-for-1 development. So it's
yeah.
like doesn't get much better. It's pretty much check, 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 check. So it's like yet the stock went down 40%, and you're thinking, what's wrong with this story? But anyway, you can't control the market, as you know, and you just
No,
have to go with the ebbs and flows, and you can't be promoting 24/7, 365.
no.
You have to get out there and execute. And we knew that we're coming back into the fall season, that naturally we're going to start to execute again. Like the assays are coming out, you're seeing like metallurgical studies take time. Yes, it's good news, it's out now, we got it out, and we'll get the full study out end of the year, early next year. It'll also be good news. Again, it takes time. So
Yeah,
you have to nothing happens overnight in this business, but you
no.
you do eventually
Well,
need to.
and you're already fully funded to do, I think the number is a total of 100,000 meters of drilling between now, what you're already starting this season, and through the end of
Yeah,
2026. Along the way, you're going to
yeah,
upgrade the resource estimate and start adding some size and scale resource-wise to the grades that you've reported. But you just this morning, as we're recording this on the 23rd, came out with another piece of the puzzle, or at least a start of another piece of the puzzle, and that is doing metallurgical work. Because, of course, a lot of people that follow the industry realize that you can have high grades, but you've got to be able to recover the majority of what you discover as well. So tell us a little bit about this morning's news.
yeah. It's very much a what you can extract from
Yeah,
your rock business, and people sometimes forget that. And generally, the problems that have happened, like probably the most notable one was probably Chalice, I guess, in Australia, which had a very substantial discovery, like 300 million tons, of I think north of 1% PGE type of discovery with some copper and nickel in there. The But they had significant issues on the recoveries, and so the stock went from 3 billion evaluation to like 400 million or so now. And I think they're working through their issues, and we wish them Godspeed on that. But the a lot of people had been burnt in that deal, and sort of were you had trepidations about power metallic, thinking, oh, you guys are going to have the same problems. It's polymetallic, you're going to have recovery issues. And the reality is, we never thought there would be a problem because of the high grade nature of it. High grade polymetallics have always been recovered quite nicely. And I remember talking to Robert Friedland, who's one of our big investors who led the last two rounds before he wrote his first check. I said, what do you think about the recoveries? He said, look, we've got Platte Reef, which is a lot lower grade project than you guys have got. And he says, we're getting high 80s, low 90s. Is it the technology is there? I'm sure you're going to get there. That's not a concern for me. So that was interesting. And like right now, we're running 80% is our recovery number target. So I think there's considerable upside to what we'll ultimately produce, but it's never bad to be conservative, to sort of say, hey, that's our number. Let's look to outpace that. But this result today was just to sort of say to people, look, this is on a mineralogy discovery, which is the first thing you do on the process of metallurgical process evaluation, is you understand what is the mineral look like, at a cellular level, where is it going to go to. So we're well along the way to having completed that now, and it looks very much like it's going to basically always report to the copper concentrate. And once you get the PGEs and the gold, silver reporting the copper, you're going to get great extractability, and you'll get, certainly we're carrying 80%. We'll certainly do that or better is our belief, and that'll be shown out in this thing. And that's basically what today was to sort of say, hey, as an interim report about halfway through, it's looking good. You know what I mean? And that's that's based on science, and so that's sort of our public statement on the thing.
Going in the right direction. So before I move on, a
100%.
couple other topics as we wind down, Terry, the mineral resource estimate that you're going to do anew by the first quarter, give or take, of 2026. Tell us a little bit, is that going to be an initial one online and Nisk both, or what are you looking at doing?
Yeah. So the direction we've given everyone, Chris, just to correct that, is end
I'm
of
sorry,
end of 26.
end of
Yeah, when
26.
we'll
Okay.
talk about the MRE, and the reason why we do that is sort of following, I guess, the Great Bear and Philo, strategies where you're growing your resource so quickly. Don't block yourself by limiting
Right.
it, by because people will put a number on the MRE and say, okay, well that's how big they're going to be, when you're still like maybe going to double by the within 6 months. So let's not do that. So our whole idea is, like, we've got a big chunk of between here and the end of April. We'd probably look to get that in the ground and in the resource, and then, like, work on that, and look to have the possibly even the September drilling up to September 15th, get in the ultimate update, which would be out towards the end of 2026.
For the end of
So
next
that's
year.
our
Okay.
that's our thinking. But what we're doing to is we post all of our drill collars, azimuths, and assays on our website. So both bank analysts and there's a lot of obviously fine technical independent analysts out there that are ex Glencore guys, or just guys that understand how to use Leapfrog and know how to model this up, and they'll put in whatever they want. They'll come up with their own model on
Yep.
our resource, and which is why we pushed forward with the metallurgical study, because the met study affects economics a lot. So if you assume only 50% recovery, that's one MPV number. If you assume 90%, that's another MPV number. So let's give them the real facts on that. So that's like, they don't have to guess on that.
Right.
We'll push that number out. We're, as I said, we're using 80% right now, but we'll get a hard number on that, and they can put that in their model, and that'll drive the shell size
Oh,
of the
sure.
zone, everything. So that'll drive the MRE ultimately. And but that's our thinking strategy wise, to do it that way, and that seems to be when you're in a fast growing discovery zone, that seems to be the way to go these days.
Well, good points. And rather than take the time and money and do too many mineral resource estimates just for the sake of doing it, the people following you've got sense enough to figure out the math on their own.
100%. Yeah, these guys are a lot smarter than we are to the most part.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. You alluded to this earlier. You had a project in BC. You've got the Chilean assets. Those were all spun out into a company that is not public at the moment. It's the privately owned company that is owned fully by Power Metallic and shareholders. Anything we should be looking for in the near term where that's
Yeah,
concerned?
yeah. So we're basically going to be we're just having an annual meeting on that. For technical reasons, expanded the board a little bit there, and we'll complete that in August and look to get this listed in September on the
Okay.
TSXV. We've pretty preliminary sort of approval there, just subject to a few conditions that we're dealing with now. We'll get that listed, and we're excited about what we've got in there. We think it's that's why we kept it. That's why we spun it out. We just thought it's a different animal. It's more exploration, whereas Nisk is now moved into more of the still exploration, but it's obviously more development too.
Sure.
So, but we felt it would get much more fairly monetized, evaluated as an independent. So we're looking forward to bringing that out in September, and then we think that'll be a nice kicker for our guys and for the company.
Nice, nice. And last but certainly not least, a story that I think for some came out of left field recently, but is intriguing as hell. And you and I talked about it, is you're getting kind of a front row seat in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that did come out of the blue. But what happened there is, you know, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is probably got one of the last really big exploration frontiers that has not been thoroughly explored already by major explorers, and it's got that's got amazingly rich potential. There's lots of estimates out there, but our guys have compared it to the Abitibi. Like if you could roll into the Abitibi, which is the big trend in Quebec and Ontario that was produces so many
Sure.
multi-billion-dollar resources. You could roll into the Abitibi in the 1940s with today's technology and have your shot at staking this ground and go and exploring it. Wouldn't that be wonderful? They sort of say, look, that's what KSA or King Saudi Arabia is like today. So
Wow.
geologically, a lot of excitement. So that was one thing. Second thing is the kingdom is not looking for land bankers. They're not looking for big guys to roll in there and swallow up all their land and just sit on it, let other people do the work, create value. No, they want active explorers. So they're searching for the world for companies that take exploration capital in and put it to work and create value for their shareholders because they want successful explorers. So I think we met them in Beaver Creek a couple of years ago. Met them and their advisors, and they were impressed with what we were doing with when we were Power Nickel with the advancing Nisk, and I think we had obviously had grown the nickel discovery, and then we had announced the discovery hole of Lion, but hadn't followed it up yet because of the weather conditions and stuff. So they sort of said, "Hey, look, do you know about Saudi Arabia? Do you know about our programs?" And we started a dialogue, started to talk, and I said, we kept on going. And then a year later, we meet them after we've obviously had the success of the Lion Zone after Friedland and McEwen and those guys got involved. So all of a sudden, we became a priority target for them to say, "Hey, look, you're the type of company that we want to come down there. Here's a new round that's coming up. Please, check out these 6 packages and make a bid. We can't make any guarantees, but it's purely on technical merit that we decide that people get projects or not." And they said, if you get the project, what we'll do is sort of a kicker to the whole thing is we'll introduce you to the top 5 family offices in Saudi who we're encouraging to invest in mineral exploration, and they need to find a good solid partner that can walk them through this and grow the business. So you sort of look at killer geological bones. Chance to meet. The smallest guy we met was 50 billion. The biggest guy was 110 billion.
Wow.
So these are like when you've been struggling in Canada to raise $2 million, have to put up half it yourself. It's a bit of a mind shift. So we
Those are
thought,
nice
yeah,
checkbooks to meet.
we're super busy and focused on Nisk, and well, we should be because that's the company maker. But we're in this business for the long run. We're always you got to be planting seeds. It took a while for Nisk to become what it's becoming now, and it'll take a while for Saudi to become what it'll become. But we sort of believe that the potential economically in Saudi is every bit as big as Nisk. Now we're starting off small, and we're moving our discussions along with the ultimately our plans there to get probably half a dozen concessions. These are in this case was I think it's 250 square kilometers, so a pretty serious area. And it's
Wow.
in an area that's quite there's a barrack mine not far away, so it's in a really prospective zone. We looked at 6 packages, we only bid on the one and got it, so we think it's excellent VMS potential. And the cool part from a work perspective is the first 9 months or so is a lot of what I would call long distance work. We need to get a bunch of geophysical, geochemical, geological studies done to sort of help us put the data together for our geological team to then come up with some theories about, hey, what's it hiding out there? This is where we should drill and test this thing. So it doesn't take a ton of our manpower or exploration time at the moment. So it's more about, hey, we got to go and get this data. So let's get some consultants in to give us some bids on generating this data. And the cool thing is the Saudis, the KSA, have on each package, they'll give you $2 million to ultimately and expend. You spend and give it back, but can amount to about 50% of the spend. So we figure it probably takes 4 million or so US to get a good first pass exploration kick at this thing, and maybe 2 million of it comes back. So maybe you're risk for a couple of million, and then you're sharing that in some way with the Saudi partner. Probably fairly limited risk for us on
Yeah.
a lottery ticket scenario. And our view is that we like this one a lot. Maybe this will be the winner, but we also think that if you take a process approach and get half a dozen of these, that you will definitely find a winner there. You'll find something that becomes a mine. And get this, if you get a mine to feasibility in Saudi, they'll give you 75% financing at 1%. So forget banks. You got the I guess it comes probably from their sovereign fund, but so you got like obviously the guys that are worth 50 to $100 billion,
Yeah.
they're 12% of the equity, or 12.5%, wouldn't be a problem. And we'll find ours. If we got that much in place, we'll find the capital for it. But I think that's what's exciting, right? So
Yeah.
we think it's going to play out over the next 2 to 3 years, and then we think that the ultimate play is to list this what will be a Saudi Arabian company. We incorporated Power Metallic Arabia. We'll list it on the Saudi Stock Exchange,
Okay.
and there they have, I would call it. There's a couple of companies there that are trading at valuations 10x what they would be getting in Canada.
Hmm.
So clearly, in this business, cost of capital is, a part of your weaponry, in terms of, if I have cheaper cost of capital than the next guy, that makes me more competitive. It means I'm able to spend more in exploration, hire better people, do all those things. So, if we can find a pathway to lower costs of capital, then that's a good thing, good for our shareholders. So it's a bit of a longer term play, but it's got enormous potential, and we like its start for
Well, it
sure.
is enormous potential, not only because you've got largely, pretty much virgin ground there. I love your analogy of it's like discovering the Abitibi in the 1940s before anybody did a whole heck of a lot with it. But you've also got the Saudis themselves. I mean, the kingdom is hungry to diversify beyond the traditional sources of income, mostly oil, of course. They're
Yep.
big, as I said before you came on, they're a big biotech incubator these days as well. That's developing. They want to develop the resources. And a good friend of mine told me, got it going back a couple of years or so ago, Terry, in a conversation he and I had. He helps to run a family office in the United Arab Emirates. And he said that a lot of the world is not yet paying attention to the fact that one of the major drivers of investment in anything worthwhile going forward is going to be Middle Eastern money. China's yesterday's story. They're in debt up to their eyeballs. The US and Canada have got limited abilities because they're in debt up to their eyeballs. The Middle East, generally speaking, has got a lot of money and not the debt overhang,
Yeah,
like in
and
all these other places.
I
And they
I
want to
agree.
spend it.
I've spent a lot of time there over the last 24 months, several visits both to Dubai and to Riyadh, and uh, and the energy level there. It's like when I was a young guy, too many years ago, Chris. But in the
I can
early eight
relate to that.
in the early '80s, I went to Alberta because
Yeah.
I grew up in Nova Scotia and the Maritimes. Went to St. FX. So at that point in 1981, what you did was you went to Alberta because that's where the jobs were.
Yeah.
So I went there, and the energy in Alberta at that time was like, we can do anything. We can take on the world. They were like serious energy, and I haven't felt that energy like that ever until most recently being in Riyadh and Dubai, and the local people there have that energy. They have that belief that this is the where you should be, and they're going to be a major driving force going forward. And I was saying to my sons who are working in the industry with us, and I said, guys, look, I'm old now. I'm 65. Yeah, this is a game that's going to play out over the next 10 years. So it's really going to be up to you guys to take advantage of it. But
Yeah.
to me, I think this is where you got to be making your bets and putting down some stakes, because it's going to take time. They want to get to know, like, and trust you, as all good partners do. But it's worthwhile to make this investment over there because they've got the capital. They've the unlike here where we still have NIMBY problems. They are 100% behind mining. They really the king, or the crown prince, MBF has said, he he wants to have mining be the number three. So it's got oil and gas, tourism, and then mining. So
Yeah.
so I mean, when you got that type of state support, and they're putting in some tremendous, like they've set up like such great digital online structures and stuff. It's very impressive what they've done. Whatever whoever they hired as consultants to advise them on the way through, they've earned their money. They've done a good job of executing it. They really made it as easy as you possibly can for a foreign company to come into KSA and get going and move forward. So we've
Nice.
been in spots, so it's good.
Well, that's very exciting for the future. And then more to the present, you've got this evolving monster of a story with Nisk and then the Lion Discovery and now a whole potential district coming. And so folks, especially with the commodity story at very, very long last, starting to get some traction. We've got a new record high in the copper price. We've had record gold prices. We've got all the geopolitical stuff going on and trade stuff going on that is starting to bring back home, even to generalist investors again, that these long forgotten areas of mining and infrastructure and energy, all this kind of stuff, is going to start to come ever more to the forefront. And so this is still very early in the game. You've got a great opportunity here with Power Nickel, and I urge you to take a close look at it. Beyond this discussion with Terry and I, of course, I'll put it up on the screen again. Make sure you go to their website, follow them on social media, kick the tires, get on their mailing list, etc. Keep in mind, as well as I said earlier, that in the near future we're going to have additional copy and video stuff out both on commodities and base metals. Power Metallic will be a part of that as well. And it won't be too long, Terry, you and I will get together again in the next few weeks when it's convenient for our schedules. We're going to go back to the Save Canadian Mining cause, and we're going to talk about a higher level subject of the investment markets, how they were broken for a long time. They're starting to get fixed. There's still a lot to do. There's policy stuff to be done. But these are interesting times, and it's almost like there's a rebirth of mining that is just starting to, take shape. Here in the U.S., I know
Yeah.
you followed
No,
this. We had the MP Materials story recently, which was a game changer for how
yep.
governments are going to have to behave going forward.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think it couldn't be a better time for generalist investors who have, to this point, I would say wisely stayed out of the mining business, unlike us, mopes. But now's the time.
Yeah.
If you look at the spread between equities and commodities, it's at its widest point. It's
Yep.
starting to turn, and that's going to rip back, and ultimately there will be a commodity boom because it's been so massively underinvestment. It's like look at the platinum and palladium that's probably ripped 25% in the last month or so, 6
Hmm.
weeks, and platinum and palladium used to trade above gold. Now they're
Yeah.
trading a quarter of the price or a third of the price. So they're probably going to go on a rip. And a lot of people don't know that the Lion Zone, if the value on the ground right now at current prices, it's 40% PGEs. Is literally the highest grade PGE discovery in the world. And so there's going to be major lift on that. So that's something that a lot of people don't know that'll come out. And it's interesting. We're moving to New York. We're going to get listed on New York. We think in sometime in Q3, which would be sort of in like September, October at latest. And we're doing that because we think America is ready to invest in mining again.
Yeah.
And we think that as you're starting to see presidents talk about mining and critical minerals, and you're seeing the MB material deals, which are being financed by the government. Apple's now pre-buying these things.
Yeah.
It's going to go from now you have the talking heads like haven't started talking about it yet, but that's coming. And soon your cab driver will be telling you about the three mining stocks he owns instead of the three houses or the three cryptos.
Yeah.
So that might be when we sell, but it's early days, and so I always say to people, look, if you can't stomach owning a individual mining stock, and that may be a big step for people because generally speaking, the mining stock charts suck. Because it's been such a struggle. But I think there's obviously find ones that have got capital and that don't need to raise money in this market, and have a chance to continue to grow their story. Those would be the best. But you can look at there's a lot of great mining funds. Whether it
Sure.
be the Van Eck ETFs, or in Canada, it's Palace Capital or BT Global or McKinsey. There's 1832 was a shareholder of ours. There's a lot of good mutual funds that will give you a basket approach to this. Not a bad way to go, because you don't miss this leap, because you will be sorry you did. And be patient, because you're not buying this into mining to make 20%. You're buying it to make 10 times your money. Okay, but you got to be patient. So and I think that's your guide stick. And so I think that for the generalist investors that are out there, mining isn't a dirty business anymore.
No.
If you got something, it's either grown or mined.
That's right.
Okay. Those are the only two ways you get anything in this world that's real. So it's like that's how it goes. So, and you can't have your iPhone, we can't have this computer if we haven't extracted all these materials and put them together in some way. And there's been an underinvestment in a big way in that space, and now there's a chance to, as a result, make a lot of money and buy things deeply discounted that you can do a really, really good thing with. And again, people think that mining's dirty. No, mining has to restore the site to exactly the way it was before. At the end of the day, you have to put money aside for that. Canada's got the most ridiculously strict environmental rules, but good for us. Because of that, we're able to go places, and people let us go in, because we have to bring our rules worldwide.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that some place would have lesser environmental rules. We have to bring Canadian rules to that place. So people need not to think as mining as sort of some sort of anti-green thing. It's not. If you live in a modern world, you need mining products, and it's time we stop being embarrassed about being miners and being proud of the job we're doing. And people should be, realizing that world's going to wake up. Now's the time to get to the right side of the mining stocks. Buy some.
Very well said, and that's going to segue perfectly into our next conversation when we talk about Canadian mining, but again, the global mining picture generally, which, because of all that underinvestment and lack of interest and attention and whatnot for so many years, we now are facing shortages of everything. And that's what's going to drive these bull markets and all these different commodities going forward. There just isn't enough of anything to go around for growing world, an industrializing, a reindustrializing world, etc. So these are exciting times, and Power Metallic's a great, exciting story. And again, folks, do your homework and place your bets. Terry, thanks much.
Thanks, Chris. Have a great day. Cheers.
Yeah.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.